Hi son, good morning. Now we're going to fix the brake lines of the Smart. There's something else going on as well. So I have very good access, and the reason is this. So engine is out because of a total failure, waiting for parts, and in the meantime looking over the rear brake lines, you can see that this is not very good. It's not failed yet, but it will definitely fail on the MOT. So now I'm going to replace that whole line, and also the other one could just as well be done when I'm here, because now I have great access because engine is out. But before we disconnect the old brake line to make a new one, I have to get inside, which is not easy, and block the brake pedal. There you go. And of course you would be asking, well, why do you want to block the brake pedal? And of course that is, if you block the brake pedal, the brake fluid won't leak out. So I'm taking a jack handle and wedging it between the seat, oh shit, and the brake pedal. So that's it. Now there will be some leakage, and of course we will need to get the air out of the rear brake lines anyway, but this will make it leak less. There we go. Now before I redo all this, I want to check that the air nipple is loose, because if we can't open the air nipple afterwards, we can't air the brakes, then we need to replace the cylinder. Usually when this stuff is very rusted, the air nipples will break off inside the wheel cylinder, and then you have to drill it out or replace the cylinder. So 8mm, ooh, there it comes. It works, That means we can safely replace the line, and we can air the lines out afterwards. Other side is shorter, but still. Up front. Loose. Run. Across the So in order to get this, I want to get the other end of the spanner onto it. You got to a ring spanner on, and I have to put it along the line and onto the nipple. Here it goes. Needs to be okay. Yep. Good. So then we just have to rebend the brake lines and replace them. Oh, typical more plastic brakes. Save that one. So now we're going to reproduce these, and we can reuse the nipples that are not rounded off, and we have to check the ends of the brake lines and make sure we use the right tool to make an identical end onto the line. So this one is a little bit rounded, not much. This one, which is a female onto the brake hose, will reuse because it's perfectly fine and it's a little bit special, so I don't have that one. This one was thoroughly rounded, so that one will have to be replaced. And let's check if I have the right ones. It's this one. See, length is the same. The thread is the same. That should be nice. Yeah, we'll reuse that one. Just double checking, try this the same. So, short one first. Then we need brake line. And of course you get brake line in most auto parts stores. And there's an end that we may be able to use. Yep, sure. Try to reproduce it. That's good enough. And this is copper, and you also have copper nickel. It looks almost the same. It's a little bit whiter. So the grey one is copper nickel and the copper one is copper. And they're very pliable, so easy to work with. And one important thing is that you get the nipple on before you start to make the ends. Because if you make the ends first, you can't get a nipple on. And we need to cut this pipe to the more or less correct length, which is here. And use a pipe cutter. And cut it with almost anything, it's very pliable. But you need to make sure that the ends are nice and open when you're done cutting. And if you use a hacksaw, you'll get burrs inside, and the burrs could make it into the brake system and ruin the seals and the cylinders and everything. So don't use a hacksaw, use a pipe cutter. Now you see the ends are almost closed because of using the pipe cutter. Will sort of meld it together. So when we make the ends and use this tool, you have to make sure we use the correct tool. So we have a couple of ends here, and there's one here. And you have to, maybe you have to make a few ends to see that you have the right tool. So you make the mushroom the same shape, because it depends on where it's been mounted. Is it a mushroom or is it a female or male? And you have different brake line dimensions. So now we're going to use this one. See, this is the same. This, and you have the backing, and you have to make sure that the backing is correct. So this is the flat backing. So we make an exact copy of this, which is also flat on the back. Slide it on, just start it into the brake line, but you need to tighten it so you make sure this center spike goes into the brake line and opens it, otherwise you just make a closed end. That is no good. Now it's inside, and then push it all the way until this one bottoms out. Make it tight again. Make all the parts line up. And now we press the rear end. That will press the mushroom shape onto the brake line. Open it back up. line. See, now we have the same end. This is a little bit more ball shaped, but that's good enough. It will seal and it will push into the correct form once you get it onto the car. And before we make the other end, we have to push this nipple on, get it past the buttons. Oop. Could have done this before I made all the bends. It would make it much easier. There you go. Now you see this is probably too long by 4 centimeters. That will probably make it hard to install because it's so short, so very tight where it's going, so I need to So this is the old pipe, and let's see what this is. Yep, steel. And it's coated, but the coating fails over the years and it starts to rust out and it ends up like this. This wasn't bad at all, mostly undercoating and stuff, but there was rust here on the end closest to the brake, which could potentially be MOT fail. So I'm replacing all this just to avoid having to do it when the car goes to MOT in a little while. Now with engine out it's so much easier to access everything. So let's do it. Now we have 2 good nipples that we can reuse. This one was a little bit questionable. It's fine if you can get the full wrench on it, but when you do it to mount it, you can only get the open end wrench on it. That is maybe borderline because this is started to weaken. So in order to avoid getting problems in a year or 2 or 3 or whatever, when you need to take it off again, I'm just trashing this, but I'm reusing the good one. So this goes on and into the tool to make a new mushroom end on this end as well. to make this line up so you can get the spike into the center of the brake line. So, slowing it down a little bit. Now I'm pushing the brake line. Don't want to do that, so I'm stopping it. There, the spike goes inside. Just make sure it's lined up. Yep. So this bottoms out. Let's grip it. And screw in the cone. Release it. Now we've got a mushroom cone on both ends. There you go. So, somewhat similar-ish. Probably good enough. Viable. So, let's line it up once we get it into the car. And now I do the long one. This is going to be very tight, so we'll make the mushroom end and all that before we start to bend it. Let's see if I can show you here. So this one grips the brake line very tight. This is where the cone is pushed into the end of the brake line and making the mushroom end. And so, to copy, you can use pliers to make the buns nicer. So this is straight, so I'm going to squeeze it to make it straight. Of course, we forgot to put the nipple on, and now it's too late. So, nipple won't go over. Now we have to cut this off, make a new end. Shit. Remember to put the nipple on, otherwise you're in trouble. Now this bottom's out, done. Then we push this one over in and retighten. flare. Good. Let's see if this fits. Oh, let's fix trouble first. Goes this way. Start it here. Start it here. Need this to be fairly tight. This last tightening also squishes the mushroom correctly in place on the nipple. And now let's do the hose end. Of course, these need to be aimed correctly. If you cross thread, you end up ruining both ends. You have to redo the brake line, and you may have to buy a new hose. It's proper annoying. Good. Of course, this could be sprayed with black paint to make it look right like the rest, but there's no danger in keeping it like it is now. And while we're in here, we can also check the ABS sensor. Should be clean, nice. And of course, the drive shaft that goes on there has teeth that go past this little sensor, and the little sensor counts the revolutions, compares it with the rest of the wheels, and makes the ABS go if it needs to. Okay, long one. Goes behind the parking brake. Straight onto the wheel. Goes course, while you do all this, you have to make sure that you don't get any crud into the brake lines. So fortunately, the brake lines are fairly pliable. This one is the copper nickel one, which is harder, so it's a bit worse than the first one. But even if you mess up the geometry, you can sort of save it by forcing it. You need to make sure that it's fairly tight, because this is where the engine goes of this car, so it's not a lot of room. Move this around. This looks suspiciously long. That's right, and jet the rods. So, wheel test is when we get the air out and test the brakes again. But this is fairly okay. This is a bit right. That's it. And let's get air out and check it later.